Good morning, everyone. It is about 9:17 here in our time zone, and today we're going to be discussing Microsoft Flight Simulator and flight simulation in general. So we're going to break this video into several different sections. I first want to discuss what is flight simulation, for those who do not know. I want to discuss a little bit about the history of Flight Simulator 2020 and 2024 in particular, and then move on to what you will need as far as to get started with this hobby, because there is some costs associated with it. There is some uh, system requirements and some subscriptions that need to be met in order to partake in this hobby. What is needed, the bare minimum, and what can be considered additional add-ons. We will talk about that. And so hopefully in this first video you will have a sense of what is needed, what is not needed, and I will put links to all of the things in the video description so that you have access to them all there. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. What exactly are we talking about when we talk about flight simulation? So essentially you are a pilot that is controlling, in this case, either the PMDG 737 or 77. Those are payware planes, which means that you have to pay to access them. And you can fly pretty much anywhere all over the world. I last night did a flight from Washington Dulles International Airport to Copenhagen in Denmark. So you can fly and land anywhere, and it is completely, with these planes, accessible. You can do it by yourself without sighted assistance. You can also add add-ons such as an ATC add-on. We'll talk about one of them that is completely accessible for blind people to use. There's also online ATC such as VATSIM, which is real human controllers that you would be speaking to, or at least humans simming as controllers. But they take their ATC language and their rules very seriously, and so there is a learning curve and some expectations there. We're not going to cover that, obviously, at least not in these opening tutorials. So again, you can have ATC, you can not have ATC. The rest of it, where you fly to, there are add-ons to do career choices like a pilot's life, which gives you a career. You can fly for virtual airlines. You can create your own virtual airline, but again, we're just here to get you started actually flying, and so those things will not be covered here. So, what does it actually take as a blind new pilot to get started? What are the very minimal requirements that you need as a pilot? So the first thing that you're going to want to obtain is Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 or 2024. We're going to focus on 2020 because not everything that you may want to use works with 2024, and so 2020 is the obvious choice to go with. 2020 can be obtained for free if you have if you have Xbox Game Pass, anywhere from $14 a month to $30 a month. I would recommend the $20 or the $14 a month package. So I would recommend, if you want it for free, get the middle tier Game Pass subscription. You can also pay $50 for it from Microsoft, or you can pay $50 for it on Steam unless it goes on sale, and in that case you can get it for cheaper. I'm going to start and keep my discussions to the Xbox version because I am the most familiar with that one. So here we're going to list the system requirements. There are minimums for AMD and NVIDIA. There are ideal and there are recommended system requirements. We will go through each section in turn, starting with the ideal system requirements, because you will see the bare minimum really is not going to get you much of anything. So we'll start with the ideal, and we will work our way through to the minimum. I might not even read the minimum because the minimum just isn't going to, they're not going to work. So we're going to start with the NVIDIA ideal specific requirements. And of course, they want Windows 10 1909. Obviously, that is no longer a requirement. You're going to want Windows 11. Windows 11 will be just fine. And an Intel i7 9800X. i7 will be great. i9 will be better. But i7 definitely if you want a better processing experience. An NVIDIA RTX 2080 graphics card. I have a GTX 4070 and I have 8 gigs of video RAM. That is the section of the table that we're under is video RAM. 32 gigs of actual RAM for your computer. This is one that I actually struggle with. If you do not have 32 gigs of RAM available, and considering that RAM is very high priced, there is a solution to fix that problem, which I will go over in a later video. 150 gigabytes of solid state drive storage. That is the bare minimum. If you add all of the scenery from all the world updates, you're going to have close to 400 to 500 gig extra of space. Probably about 420 is just a rough estimation. So about 520 gigs of hard drive space that you're going to need potentially for MSFS to work in the ideal requirements. 50 Mbps upload and download for bandwidth. That's again ideal. Now we're going to do the ideal requirements for the Athlon AMD processor here in just a moment. So we're going to start with the processor again because the Windows OS recommended is no longer in existence as Windows 10. So Windows 11. An AMD Ryzen 7 2700X is what they recommend. Again, this was a few years ago. So any newer model, Ryzen 7, Ryzen 9 processor will do just fine. A Radeon 7 graphics card or better. 8 GB of video RAM. Again, that will do just fine. 32 gigs of RAM. Again, if you don't have that, there is something that you can do to compensate for that. 150 gigabytes SSD, 50 Mbps bandwidth. And now we're going to go to the ideal, or to the recommended, and we will stop at that point. Intel i5 8040. This is for Intel processors. An NVIDIA graphics GTX 970 or better. 4 GB of video RAM. That might barely get you by. 16 gigabytes of RAM. That is the bare minimum. Again, we will talk about fixing that if you are doing other things like streaming. 150 gigs of storage space, 20 megabits per second of bandwidth. A Ryzen 5 1500, this is for AMD under the recommended category. Radeon RX 590 or better. Cards are way better since then. 4 GB of video RAM, 16 gigabytes of regular RAM. 150 SSD, 20 Mbps. So now we're going to move on to the software side of this tutorial. Besides Flight Simulator and its system requirements, what else do you need to fly as a blind pilot? So, for starters, you're going to need at least 2 pieces of software besides the plane that you're going to want to purchase. If you're going to fly the PMDG 737 or the PMDG 777, you are going to need the following 2 pieces of software and subscriptions. The first is a program called Talking Flight Monitor, which the website is www.talkingflightmonitor.com. I will include a link in the description. It is the accessibility interface, the accessibility add-on that makes the PMDG planes accessible. It comes with a subscription fee of $10 a month or $100 a year. You will also need a Navigraph subscription, which can be found at navigraph.net. They offer a monthly subscription for $8 a month. That is Navigraph Ultimate, which includes a bunch of things like charts and maps and things that we as blind pilots cannot do. You have the option of obtaining a Navigraph Nav Data subscription for $45 a year. That will get you what is called the aeronautical data or the AIRAC data. That tells the plane and your simulator the frequencies for runways, beacons, ILS approaches, or ILS systems, all of these different things, and that is part of your that's what you get with your Navigraph subscription. If you don't have this, you will be flying with outdated nav data and the results will not be pleasant. I know, I have done it before. So $10 a month for the Navigraph Ultimate, $45 a year for the Navigraph Nav Data subscription, which you will find when you create your Navigraph account. You will also want to get a subscription, again, to TFM. Those are the 2 subscription products you will need. You will also need a SimBrief account. That is SimBrief, SIMBRIEF.com. Again, a link to that will be included in the description of this tutorial. And we will walk you through creating your first flight plan and flying that first flight in later videos. So what does TFM, and this is going to be my final section for this, what does TFM actually do? Why would I want to pay a subscription for a product when I already have the plane? Can I just fly the plane without this piece of software? I'd like you to try. Actually, no. I don't want you to try because you will find that you cannot do that. TFM is basically the interface that connects along with FSUIPC, another free piece of software that you will need to connect everything together. But these 2 programs will interface with your plane and with the simulator, and they let you see the plane's panels, such as your electrical, your overhead, your maintenance, your just all of the different panels, which we will have a look at when we load TFM for the first time. It will let you enter stuff into the CDU. It will let you look at your waypoints. It will let you tell the plane to how to jump from waypoint to waypoint. It will let you enter in fuel and your payloads and and all these other things that are required to make a plane take off. You cannot just load a willy-nilly amount of passengers on a plane with cargo and expect the plane to fly. There are procedures and requirements and everything that we're just not going to be able to cover in these tutorials because, for one, I don't know all the terms and I don't want to steer you all wrong. We will cover all of the other pieces, such as the aforementioned FSUIPC, where to get it, in later videos. So TFM is your accessibility interface. Think of it as JSA is, if you're familiar with JSA from Hartgen Consultancy, think of it as JSA to Dragon. Without JSA, a JAWS user cannot interact with Dragon. It just cannot be done. TFM, without that, you cannot interact with your airplane, and therefore you cannot fly it. We will talk about additional optional add-ons in the next video. So to recap, let's discuss briefly what we've done. We talked about what flight simulation is, what you need to access flight simulation. We talked about the bare minimum as far as subscriptions and the cost of those subscriptions and the system requirements and the software that goes with it. And in our next video, we will talk about some additional optional add-ons, particularly with ATC, and we'll focus on one in particular there that you may be interested in to further enhance your experience, but they are not a requirement.